Alongside hockey insider Pierre LeBrun at the NHL Board of Governors meetings in Seattle. Pierre, a number of key topics on the agenda, not the least of which is possible expansion. Every time we hear the potential expansion word, it really piques a lot of interest.
Yeah, Gino, technically expansion is actually not on the agenda, but what happens at this meeting is governors have questions for NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, and I suspect that one governor will say, what's the latest on expansion? So yeah, not on the agenda, but may end up being talked about. And I think what they'll hear from Gary Bettman is what he has said publicly in his media gatherings over the last 6-7 months, which is that the NHL continues to get interest from places like Salt Lake City, Atlanta, Houston, and Quebec City. And the NHL, however, doesn't have any immediate plans to expand. That's going to change. I mean, every hint that you get from Gary Bettman is that eventually I think the expansion process will reopen again, just not right now.
Something else that's got to change is the NHL getting back to the Olympic Games. We haven't seen the NHL at the Olympics since 2014, coming on a decade now. Are we any closer?
Time flies. I remember being in Sochi, Russia for those Olympics. So the league and the NHLPA continue to have discussions with the IOC and the IIHF on the Italy Olympics for February 26. It is incredibly important, obviously, to the players to be there finally. Marty Walsh, the new executive director of the NHLPA, has made it a priority. Listen, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly have been quoted saying they want the NHL to return. But you don't just snap your fingers. Unfortunately, there are financial hurdles to overcome with the IOC and the IIHF as far as making sure player insurance and travel.
But that's only a little over 2 years away, Pierre.
Well, basically, everyone involved says there needs to be an answer by January or February. So we're coming up on it. Yeah. Again, the intention here, and we'll hear more here a lot next couple of days, is for the NHL to return to the Olympics. But it'll be interesting to hear what the owners are told from the NHL on that here.
We're hearing so many stories and so much evidence of teams being hamstrung now by the salary cap. And organizations have been hamstrung because of COVID, because of the reduced revenues for years now. Are we getting closer? Are we going to hear anything at these meetings about a big bump in the cap?
Yeah, so I think Gary Bettman will further reiterate what he said at the October Board of Governors meeting in New York that I was at, which is at the time he said it was a very, very preliminary revenue figure, but based on that and based on the fact that the players have finally paid back their debt from the pandemic, their escrow debt, the cap is expected to be up to around 87 to 88 million next year. Basically, the up to a 5% jump as per the CBA, finally. Yeah. So that's going to be significant. Now, again, those were preliminary figures in early October when the owners last met. At this meeting, the revenue figures should be a little more played out, and Gary Bettman should give us a better idea if it is indeed going to be 87, 88 million for the cap next year, which is big for a lot of teams.
A hefty jump. That's all the latest news from the NHL Board of Governors meetings in Seattle, Washington with insider Pierre LeBrun.